All right, so it's time for another 60-second Words on Worship Wednesday, and today is part 2 of our 3-part series on pre-service details. Last week we kicked things off by talking about going through your order of worship or your set list as a plan, and this week we're going to be talking about instrument tuning. And the reason this is so important is that most guitar players, for example, are going to be tuning their instruments, at least they should be. But just because you've got different instruments that are tuned up doesn't mean that they're in tune with each other, because even electronic tuners don't always agree with each other. So make sure if you're playing an E or a B flat that it really is that note across the board and everything sounds the same. And speaking of guitars, you gotta remember that if you're using a capo, that's gonna mess up your tuning as well, because the higher up you go on your fretboard, that's typically you're going a little bit sharp with your capo. And lastly, if you're using any orchestral instruments like flutes or clarinets or trumpets or brass or whatever, even those instruments need some fine tuning. Even if they're fingering the correct note, it still could be slightly off. So just remember as you're going through your pre-service checklist to not only tune an instrument to itself, but to tune all the instruments to each other. And believe me, it's going to make a world of difference in your sound.